Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's Better Way Thursday workshop. We are super excited to be here, and we are going to have a great conversation today about money and what that means to us. But it's about more than money. It's about a lot of different things. And I am thrilled to have our guest here today, who is Steffi Baker. I'm going to let her introduce herself. And we also have Allison Law, who is part of our Tech Moms team and who introduced us to Steffi and said, "You've got to hear this woman talk." So Alice and I are both going to be part of this conversation, but it's mostly going to be Steffi telling us her story. And Steffi, I'm just going to let you take it away.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Tech moms, hello. I love you. Tech is a great career. I'm glad you're in it. So I'm from Milwaukee originally. Found my way into a private high school, which was really interesting on a scholarship. And then from there, that kind of got me into the world of wealthy people and all that. And I got into tech. And I'm going to tell you the story of that. And I'm going to tell you the story of how I took a wonderful ride upwards in tech and hopefully give you some ideas for what you can do. Currently, I am CEO and co-founder of High Net Worth Women Institute. We help women and couples who are on their way up figure out the money, their lives, and the everything. We look at it holistically. A lot of people will talk to you about one or the other, but Hannah, my co-founder, and I really believe it needs to be looked at as a whole. Your money is not a vacuum; it doesn't exist in a vacuum, and it's wonderful work. I love it. I've lived in London for 12 years. I did. I'm a dual citizen. I went to get my MBA. I'll get into that after, which I finally just finished after a long time. And it's been a great ride, and I hope to share some interesting tips here, practical stuff as well as the bigger stuff. We can have another specific money discussion another time, but I'm going to tell you now about how I went from making 30,000 to 105,000 in tech over a very short period of time. I think it was 5, 6 years. And I want to start this and frame this by I decided that I've got a system for career life, and I've decided to call it the Great Knowledge Triad because there's three things that you need to know. Really, that's what everything boils down to. A, know yourself, which equals know your value. And this get paid what you're worth stuff, you're infinite. It's about don't put your personal worth into a dollar amount or what someone else thinks. It's your skill set. It's what you bring to the table. Let's be really clear about that. Knowing your value means your market value of your skills, not you. You are infinitely valuable. Don't connect that. Knowing the game you're playing. I think this is where women a lot of times fall down. They don't have the big picture of exactly what's going on. Because everything's a game. Your career is a game, money's a game. Been a big athlete since I still figure skate competitively. I love basketball. Yeah, so I tend to talk about stuff in terms of sports. And if I were to hand you a basketball or hand you a pair of skates and say, okay, let's go with it. Go here. There's the rink. Put them on. Go skate. And here's a book. And go win an Olympic medal. You've got a year. Have fun. Are you going to do it? No, you don't have a chance. Or if I handed you a basketball, okay, here's got to get the ball in the basket. Go up and down the court. Here's a few of the rules. You wouldn't win an NBA championship or a WNBA championship. You wouldn't know what to do. Maybe you learn one. You have to got to learn everything. Yet we go out into our careers and dealing with our money and all these other things without fully understanding the game, fully understanding the rules, because you've got to know the rules and play by them for a while until you can learn to bend and break them and even make new rules. Because as a woman in tech, you will be making some new rules. It'll be fun. Third, know the right people. Relationships are who it is so much. I would say it's somewhere, but at least 60%. You could argue it could be up to 90% of your success. Although, you still have to value you have to show up. I don't want to say it's all about knowing other people. You still have to know your stuff. So that's it. That's a framework for understanding how to run your career and what you need to do within your career. So that's the Great Knowledge Triad. That being explained, let me tell you my tech career story. So 1994 to 2001. I've been a writer since I was a kid. I decided in the second grade, after writing an article for the student newspaper on what is an economy, for which I interviewed my dad, the expert. I like this writing thing. This is awesome. And I love to read. So I knew I always wanted to be a writer, and I thought that meant journalism. And I will never forget, around the early 90s, I had a friend who worked for the Wall Street Journal, and he called me to tell me he was leaving and taking another job. He'd been there 15 years. I said, why? I thought you loved it. He said, well, I do, but I can't afford to send my son to college. His wife, they were in New York City. His wife was working as well, but he said, we make too much to qualify for much aid. But, I forget, his son had gotten into an amazing school, probably an Ivy League, and we can't really afford to send him. And I can't do this anymore. So he was going into PR, which paid way better. And he was sorry to go. And I thought, that that conversation, and then also the Christine Kraft case was going on in television journalism. Christine Kraft had reached the ripe old age of 35 and been fired by the station she worked for because she was too old. Okay, I'm in my 20s thinking, where is this going for me? A lot of things started happening. I'm like, this is not the right place for me. And the pay was abysmal. I did do television journalism for a year, and what did they pay me? $12,000 or something? It was ridiculous. And of course, if I didn't like it, there's hundreds lined up behind me. And I also discovered that television journalism wasn't for me. It was just too fluffy. When people are calling the station going, oh, I love your lipstick. I love your top. I mean, and hey, I love my lipstick and my top today, but that's not that's not my value, right? So a lot of things happened to where I realized this isn't for me. The month, this is no, and this is just insufficient money. Well, then I thought, okay, I could become a marketing writer. So I did. I took a job around about 90, 93, 94 at $30,000. And I did that. That was wonderful. And I was thinking of how to move up in the company until I had a car accident. I got rear-ended really hard I was turning into the parking lot, coming back from lunch, and this woman smacked me. And I was I was injured severely, and I was out of work for a few weeks. Well, 2 weeks before, I'd had a performance review, glowing. Everything was great. I'm a wonderful person. I'm a wonderful employee. I come back after this, and all of a sudden it's, well, we need to sit down and have a discussion about where you're deficient. It was so blatantly, and I got fired within a few weeks. It was, Lord only knows why. But I mean, I wasn't asking them for money. The car insurance was paying. We'll never understand. Anyway, I got fired. And that was probably just as well because I had to go to the doctor a lot. So I took 4 months off. And here's where this 4 months gave me time to research. Ladies, do the research. You need to know forwards and backwards what positions are open that you're interested in. What are they? What's the career progression? What are the pay ranges? And depending on where you want to live, what are the pay ranges in what city? Know this stuff inside and out, because armed with this research, I went to a job fair. And at this time, working for a consulting firm was a big thing in tech. That's the way you did it. You didn't necessarily have to go direct. You could be a contractor, very common. So I went from, and here's my number one tip: don't reveal your previous salary. Don't do it. They ask, I'll tell you how to politely handle that. So I got the interview, I went in, and they're like, oh, this is great. We could place you here and there. So what were you making at your last job? With a straight face, not missing a beat, I said, that's an interesting question, but I don't think it's really relevant here, because that was a completely different job. And what we're looking at here, it's not an equal comparison. Okay. So I started at 42,000. 12,000 increase like that, because I knew the range. I knew what I could reasonably ask for. And so there I went. And then I did that for a year, and that was all well and fine. And then my boyfriend at the time had a friend whose wife was a recruiter for Sun Microsystems. You all aren't going to know about Sun. Sun was a biggie back in the day. It was Scott McNeely was the CEO, and he was hilarious. And there was this fun rivalry that they had with Microsoft. But it was a wonderful cutting edge company. Oracle eventually bought it. Anyway, so yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention, Steffi, as we talk
Yeah.
about your salary,
Yeah.
this was in the 90s. So I just did a Google
Correct.
search. And so $46,000 in the like mid to late 90s, it would be over double that. So you were making almost $100,000 in today's money.
Oh my gosh, Allison, thank you for doing that. That didn't even occur to me.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
So
right.
as you
You're
continue
right.
your story, I'll jump in and
Oh,
give
thank
you the
you.
updated numbers of what that's worth in today's money.
Okay. Oh, and I can't wait to when I get to the end of the story, what I would have been making. Oh, yeah, this is cool. Anyway, so yeah, this is the 90s. And so anyway, there I am doing that. And so my boyfriend says, "Oh, Kristen wants to talk to you. She's got a job for a writer open." I'm like, "Oh, okay, sounds great. That'd be cool." And again, I went in for the interview. Now, this is where I switched. I was doing documentation help. And I discovered actually as a writer, it's really cool to find out that, I'm doing all this creative stuff for news reporting. I have a logical part of my brain. Writing step one, step two, step three, step four is actually very satisfying, if a little bit confining, but hey, it pays double, triple than journalism. I'm in. And I loved it. So I went for that interview. And again, it was, "So what are you currently making?" And I did the same thing. I politely declined to answer on the basis that these are two completely different jobs. And this was a job for an ISO 9000 writer for the customer care center. For those of you who don't know what ISO is, it's standards and quality standards, and it tends to apply in manufacturing. But if you Google it, you can find out what it is. Anyway, that was a little bit, be open to taking a little bit of a detour. Like, okay, hey, it gets me into Sun. That's great. So then I negotiated at 60,000. So from 42 to 60, boom, like that. Then I got in there. Okay. So first thing I did was I started befriending managers. And of course, I had Kristen as my friend in HR, which is hugely helpful because she was, after the interview and I was all hired and all of that, I found out, she said, "Well, I was supposed to find out how much you made and give you 10% more." Okay. Don't let them box you in like that. Don't allow it. And you don't have to be nasty or defensive. You just have a very smooth, polite response of, it's really not, it's not relevant. Let's talk about the job at hand. Focus them, keep them focused. So I started there and I did that for a year. Now, in the big, and I moved from Denver to Silicon Valley with the company as I moved up, because hey, that's Mecca. You're in tech, right? That's where it all happens. So I negotiated, I got another job. At the time, moving, and I don't know if it's still the same, but within a big company, moving positions every 1 to couple of years was a good thing to do. And I think probably these days, if you're sitting in a one job for years and years at one company, it's probably not the way it works anymore, I'm guessing. But anyway, it was totally acceptable to be able to move up. So first thing I did was I befriended managers like, "How does this all work?" And then I'd ask Kristen about the money stuff. But we had on the web, so I came in as an E6, E6, 7, 8, 9, and then E10 was a director level. One thing I discovered, be careful if you just want to get your foot in the door. I discovered working in the customer care center, a lot of people took a job, as customer service thinking they'd get their foot in the door. Backfired on them. They weren't on the E schedule, on that E schedule. They were hourly employees. That was, E stood for exempt. And it was almost impossible for them to move from that to another position within the company. I don't know why, but it did not work. So you don't always want to just take something thinking you're going to, get in the mailroom and think you're going to work your way up. Be careful of that. You want to learn the internals. So we did have published the band of pay for each one. So I knew I came in in mid-range, in a good range. And that was typical. I found out that they don't usually pay the top. That's, they're looking to pay somewhere in the middle to the higher. So I was good. And then I started looking at jobs, and we had them all posted on the internet. So I moved up. Then I took a program manager job, which was interesting. It got me up another level, and I didn't like it at all. I am not a project manager personality. In fact, they had Sun University. They sent me to some training. The instructor says, "Can you hold up after class?" I'm like, "Oh no, what did I do?" And he said, not unkindly, "What are you doing in here? Why are you in this class? Why are you in this job?" And I'm like, "Oh, what did I do? I'm sorry. Did I say something wrong?" He said, "No, I recognize your personality. You've got too much personality to be a project manager." Um, and the thing is, I'm glad I did it for a while, and I didn't care for that job, because what I learned is it's a lot of problem solving every day. It's a problem. I'm a pearl polisher. I like to take something good and make it great. And constant people problems, and my husband is a very high-end project manager, very well paid in IT. And I listen to him, I'm like, he's good. And now I'm glad I did it, because I got a good skill set. It is good to know how to manage a project, but that is not my life's work. So I got out of that, and then I started moving into, I discovered that the channel, the channel partners, the sales partners, this was a big deal, because that was 60% of Sun's revenue coming in through the channel partners who sold. So I got a job within a group that was doing the channel stuff. And my boss was an alcoholic and horrible, highly unusual. Sun was the most wonderful employment experience I've ever had. The best people at the top of their game. It was better to ask forgiveness than permission. It was so fantastic. It was my jam, as opposed to like IBM, where I guess everything's very by the book. So there I am, and I'm like, oh crap. And this man, I watched him pick people at all these meetings in our group and even outside, and he would pick on whatever he drank in the morning. And I watched him attack people in meetings. And he's a high level, this is a director. I don't know, this is very unusual in Sun. Anyway, I watched everyone. They tried to defend themselves. They tried to explain. They pushed back. I watched everybody fail to diffuse him. Okay. And I'm in my early 30s here. All these people are way older than me. So I'm watching what doesn't work. And so eventually I get, "Steffi, I want to see you tomorrow." Okay. Ruh-roh, my turn. But he's going to do it one-to-one. I'm like, oh crap. All right. So I sit down, I take a pad and pen in, and he proceeds to lay into me. "You're not doing this. You're not doing that." Blah, 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 blah. I took notes. I didn't say a word. And then when he finished, I said, "Okay, is that all?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Okay." So I summarized it. I said, "If I'm hearing you right, you don't like that I'm not this and I'm not that, and you want me to this and that." "Yes." I said, "Okay, I'm sorry that you're unhappy. Now let me talk to you about I'm sorry for just 1 second. I lived in England for 12 years. Sorry is a part of the national language. It's sorry can mean anything from I am deeply, genuinely, heart-bleedingly sorry to screw you, depending on the intonation. So as far as women not apologizing all the time, I don't know. It's culturally, I kind of do it. You can think about if you don't have to. Sometimes you do need to say you're sorry. I went for a job interview once where the interviewer was almost half an hour late, and they said, "Oh, thank you for your patience." I'm like, apology, explanation would have been appropriate. And this instead of saying sorry, say thank you for your patience. No, there's times you need to apologize. "I apologize. I'm sorry. It's okay. Don't freak out about it." But anyway, I said to him, this is 1990, whatever it was, "I'm sorry. You're not happy. What can I do to make you happy? What would you like me to do?" He didn't know how to handle it. uh, uh, well, I did not do any of what I saw everyone else do. Completely deflected him, and he left me alone after that. And I took down what, and then I reported back to him what I was doing. I was off his radar. So I also started looking for it at 6 months when I was eligible to transfer. I started looking, and that's when I moved into the server. That this was the thrill of a lifetime. I got into the channel partner program management side where I had a wonderful boss named Bruce Pruitt, and I can't find him anymore, but he hired me in. It was a small team of 5 other guys. And I was running channel partner programs for the big systems integrators. And do I need to explain systems integrator, or does everyone know? What do you think? Systems integrator. So back then it was like Perot Systems, Accenture, where a company says we need a system and they hire one of these big consulting companies to come in and build it for them. Systems integrator. This is the big ones, Capgemini, all these other EDS, big systems integrators for the big $1 million plus servers globally. I've never had so much fun in my life. I was traveling all over the world. They were about to transfer me to London or Paris because I was spending so much time in Europe that it made better sense for me to sit in London or Paris. And then 9/11 happened. Anyway, we'll get to that in a sec. This was a wonderful job. My boss was fantastic. The skill that I cultivated there was to take things that were very complex and be able to explain them in plain English in business terms. So being able to talk tech to business people. I traveled with an engineer. He and the other engineers, they could sit in the corner and talk speeds and feeds. But my job was to help them understand what Sun had and why it was better than the competitors and what they would get working with us today and what they could get working with us tomorrow. So I knew my competitors as well as I knew my own products. It was such an expansive experience. Also, I went through a big major launch of the Sunfire line. It was like the Olympics. They did a major new line every 4 years. So it was Sunfire. The engineering team would send slide presentations about these servers, 100 slides. You can't do that. And Bruce had a rule. You get 8 slides. If you need more than 8 slides, you have to present to me, give me your presentation, and you have to defend each slide. So that helped me be very brief. I got so good at it that I was a very popular speaker in the customer briefing center, which was huge. Global clients would come in to see demos and stuff. And I became very popular with the international clients because I was so clear. And I was very popular with the Asians because I spoke slowly. So the translator, I'll never forget. The one group from Japan gave me a gift. Like, oh, this was so sweet. So it opened opportunities. And I mean, me, big servers, who knew ever? I have a very curious mind. I'm curious about everything. So you show me something that interests me, and I don't care what, someone found me reading a book about Rastafarianism once. What are you doing? Are you going to Jamaica? I'm like, no, I met a guy who's Rasta, and it's so interesting. So curiosity really serves you well. Anyway, so that was all well and fine. That was going along great. One day, and I negotiated that job at 105. Same thing. I knew the game. I knew the bands. I was very familiar. I knew what I could likely get. One day I walk into Bruce's office and I put something down on his desk. Right there, I was not snooping, I swear, was a report of who in the department was making what. And then here's the kicker, guys. I did all of this without having an undergraduate degree. No degree. Okay. So I was making only a few thousand less than men 10, 15, 20 years older than me with advanced degrees and 20 years of experience. So that's where the chutzpah gets you. Research and chutzpah take you a long way. And then sadly, before I could get up and move, 9/11 happened and the party was over. Wow. Sun, you think you're hearing about layoffs now. Sun laid off, and we knew it. We knew it was coming. 9/11 happened. And then a month later, we were told, actually, I had a business trip planned to Europe. I went to London, and people were apologizing all over, for we're so sorry for our American friends and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was sad. But we knew Scott McNeely announced we're going to have to lay off. There's just going to be no way around it. So we knew it was coming. And they laid off in one day on November 1st of 2001, 10,042 people. Yeah. And all of the big Cisco, Oracle, all of these big names we all know that were doing the same. It was the traffic was slashed. You could get into restaurants, you could get into hotels. I mean, it was an exciting place to be. The great thing about Silicon Valley was there's no such thing as failure. If you worked for failed.com, you were actually more valuable because you knew what didn't work. You could shortcut people, you could bypass. And the whole time I was there, I was getting calls from .coms. One, we'll offer you double everything. I'm like, nah, I think I'm good. Yeah, that they went bust a year later. So anyway, that the party was over there. And I had been allowed to move to Salt Lake City from Silicon Valley because I had auditioned and been accepted to skate in the opening ceremony of the Olympics in 2002. And I did this. So that I got great severance. It was the most humane layoff ever. We knew it. They called it, people who had affected were called in the morning. We were given the whole day. They did not frog march us out. We're very sorry. We are going to miss you. Please feel free to call or email anybody you need to say goodbye and tell them what happened. And I always remember calling over to Europe and they're like, what? We got someone who understands us and now you're going? Oh no, boo-hoo. So, because things like, I was very culturally astute. When I went to Paris, I wore nice clothes. I like designer stuff. And I wore an Ungaro dress and the ladies were admiring me. And I got multiple people saying, you're so much better than the rest of them from headquarters. These women come to Paris here and they come into our office and they're wearing jeans. So being culturally astute, I learned French and Spanish in high school. I stood up and gave an introduction in French. And I'm sure it wasn't perfect, but I made an effort. Anyway, I was very popular over there. And so that was it. And I skated the ceremony. It gave me time to skate. And then I got up. I decided to get up and move to London and do my MBA, which I did. And then I got out into wealth management and family office. And that's another story for another day. What I know about money and what really wealthy people do is super cool. But that's another thing. So that's how I did it and made moves up quickly. And I hope there have been some nuggets there that you can all use to start mapping your trajectory. Any questions?
Yeah, Steffi, I want to throw
Yeah.
in some of the nuggets that I heard
Okay.
as you were
Sure.
telling your career story.
Yeah.
So I was interested to hear what you said about not just getting your foot in the door, because that's one of the things that we tell tech moms to do,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
And so but I love hearing that perspective too. And it goes
Be
to show that
careful.
it really, yeah,
Yeah.
that it really can vary on types of organizations. One of the things that we do talk about is the very large, very structured, very established organizations that do have the pay bands and things like that. That might be a very different situation than a smaller company that has different types of opportunities, different types of things. So this goes back to what you said at the very beginning. Do your research. If you're looking at an organization that there might be certain organizations where it's okay to just get in any job and get there because they are known for moving people around, and others where you get in there and you'll be stuck, right? So I loved hearing that perspective and knowing that you got to do your research before you make that decision. The next nugget that I grabbed from this was that when you took the job that was not a good fit for you, right? When you were the program manager, you recognized quickly and said, I don't need to stay here forever, right? But you still learn new skills and gain new capacities that you were able to use in different situations. So that's another one. The next one where you talked about moving, and I don't even remember what exactly it was, but when you were saying that this was a great place to be in the organization because 60% of their business was done there. The key nugget that I
Yeah.
took away from
Channel.
that was, yeah, understanding where the revenue streams, the most important revenue streams are in your company, and learn how to add value in those areas. That is going to set you up to really move forward.
Mm-hmm.
The next key nugget was look out for yourself if you recognize that you're in a bad situation, like having an alcoholic boss, right? Like understanding you handled that so well, but you were
Mm-hmm.
also looking around for other opportunities. So protecting yourself and having a good eye to the landscape that you're in, because sometimes it's easy to say, I'm just going to play stupid. I'm going to be oblivious and hope this doesn't affect me. And in so many cases, if you're not, nobody else is going to look out for you the way you're looking out for yourself, right?
Darn
And then
right.
the last key point that I took, I mean, I love hearing your pathway and all these different lessons that you
Mm-hmm.
learn through your career is that there are factors beyond our control that are cyclical and that happen.
Yeah.
The dot-com boom happened, and then the bust happened, and 9/11 happened, and in the last 5 years we've had COVID, and then we've had a big boom that happened as well because there was
Yeah.
lots of money flowing everywhere, and now we're in a bit of a bust as well. So
Mhm.
I love your perspective to help our women understand there are cycles. Tech is not a stable industry. Okay. And I try to tell my women, I had a woman at the beginning of Tech Moms who said, I just want to get a job and stay there for the next 20 years. And I was like,
No, don't do it.
go work for the state government, go
Yeah.
work for a school system. Like there are places
Yeah.
that are stable. Tech is not one of them,
Mm-mm.
but there's a lot of opportunity. There are pros and cons everywhere. But I love you emphasizing here there are cycles, and you rode a wonderful cycle
I did.
and made the most of it. And then you said,
Mhm.
"What next?" Right? And that's something we've all got to be ready to do. So those are some
Mhm.
nuggets I took away. Allison, did you have anything else that you heard that you wanted to share listening to this wonderful career story?
Yeah, I wrote down some similar things of knowing and doing your research. Um,
Mhm.
for the women that are going through Tech Moms, and I teach the data analytics course, and they're looking to get jobs in data. Um,
Mhm.
After the course, it's time for them to start applying to the workforce and knowing what the pay range is for a data analyst intern versus an entry level
Mhm.
data analyst versus 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and kind of getting to set their sights on their 5 year goal of in 5 years, I'd like to be making over $100,000 as a data analyst and knowing that's possible. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think that's really important. And then also with the bad manager, I feel like that's so relatable. Like
Yeah.
we've all been there, and there's some saying that I'm totally going to get wrong, but it's along the lines of like people don't stay because of their job, they stay because of their manager. When you have a good manager,
Correct.
it can really add to the longevity of you and your career and where you're at.
Mhm.
And then the opposite's true when you have a bad manager. So definitely relatable there. And nice to hear kind of, yeah, again, in the different time frames. So you're talking in the 90s when I was going to mention 105,000 when that was
Oh
your
yeah, tell me, how much was it?
it's now in today's money that's $211,000. So you're
Wow,
making good money, double
I
six
was
figures.
okay. Here's another one I'll throw out at you that I forgot to
Mhm.
mention. So I had stock options, of course, and at one
Yeah.
point I was an optioneer.
Okay.
What's 1.2 million in 1998 worth now?
Girl. That's what we talk.
Yeah, unfortunately,
That's
those
what
yeah.
I like to I like to bring up with the women and tech moms. And
Hmm.
it's not as common in Utah, but if you can
Yeah.
get these shares in a company and then those extra equity, that equity goes somewhere, there's some kind of liquidity event where that company either gets bought or goes public. That is a true path to wealth. And I have a similar story working at GitHub and being acquired by Microsoft. Um,
Hmm.
and so that's what is really exciting about women working in tech is the opportunity for getting being an investor right when you get your first job by getting equity. Let
Hmm.
me do the
Yeah.
math. Let me put
Okay.
it into Google.
You
That's a
do
lot
the
of
math
zeros.
and I'll comment further on that. So, as part of research, when you're looking at startups are great. Then you do the research and then make sure you talk to people who really know. Because if you can, like you make such a great point, Allison, you can exponentially, and if you start getting an eye for, okay, what are the criteria that this startup, IPOs are a lot less common. They're half of what they are back in 2000.
Mm,
IPOs are not a hugely common, they were much more common back then. I mean, remember, this was the birth of the computer industry. It was, I call them the whoopee years. It was exciting. It was crazy. And now we've got AI, which is, I think, the new game changer. But make sure you get competent help of evaluating a company's possibility for getting acquired, because that's more likely. Look at, find, if you don't know, make friends with people who can help you. Well, what are they doing here? This is what they've got that would be valuable to another company. This is a good way to start thinking. And then also you have to understand the taxes on option stuff.
Yeah.
That's not just a windfall. Like when you hear Sarah Blakely sold her company for 2 billion or whatever it was, Sarah Blakely did not pocket 2 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you've got to make sure you're prepared for that. And if you're going to get into that, then you want to understand all the taxes, because if you exercise options at the wrong time, because typically you'll be I was vested over 5 years. Unfortunately, yeah, I know people that bought their homes off their stock options, but you will owe taxes on that stuff, and you've got to plan for that, get with a good CPA. But yeah, that's a great way of doing it. And two things that I just want to comment on: the profit center thing that Robin mentioned. So travel is frozen at Sun, except for a couple of divisions. Channel partners, the big servers were making money. I was still going to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Get into a profit center, not a cost center, if at all possible. Really important. Yeah. And then there was another, what did I write down? Hate it when I can't read my own writing. Oh, the business cycle thing. Very important. And this goes to wealth managing money and investing and creating wealth. These cycles are predictable. I mean, it's not to the month and the year, but boom, bust, boom, bust. It happens all the time. And then, good times are rocking and rolling. And then people forget that there are bad times, and the bad times, people forget there are good times. And if you get objective, and I'm going to talk in a minute about the qualities that you want to try to develop, be objective, be able to look at things, observe and be objective, and you can start seeing the writing on the wall economically. It ain't rocket science. There's a couple of books that I always recommend. The Secret Wealth Advantage by my friend, his last name's Patel, and this is what happens when you get older, you forget stuff. But The Secret Wealth Advantage explains the business cycles. Really good book. And tax, oh, this is so bad. I read these books all the time. The guy's name is Tom Wheelwright.
Mm-hmm.
And the book is Tax Wealth, I believe.
Tax-free wealth.
Thank you.
I've told you on Audible right now.
Thank you. That will change your perspective on wealth and taxes. Taxes are beautiful. They are. You read this book. Yeah, it means you're making money. And also, long story short, the tax code is written to encourage investment for the things that the government can and won't do. There's very little that's, and that the more money you make, the more, when you hit accredited investor level, oh my gosh, does the world open up to you. And that's why tax at this book, that's it. Thank you, Allison. And Tom happens to be from Ogden, where I live right now.
Oh, right.
I met him on a webinar one time. He's like, oh, I know where you live.
Oh, cool.
So he's a great guy. That book will change your perspective. You can, here's the thing. If you're not an entrepreneur, that's fine. You don't have to be a business owner on that other side, rich dad, poor dad quadrant. But when you're making money as an employee or as a self-employed person, you want to get smart about investing and there are people that have done very well, but I'll give you a hint. It's not going to be through your 401k or your IRA.
Mm-hmm.
Those are limiting.
I'm excited to
They're
learn more
not
about
bad.
that, right?
Oh, we can have a whole other discussion.
Another conversation.
But these things are, I'm not telling you not to do it, but that's not where no one got wealthy on their 401k. No, it doesn't happen. Anyway.
So Steffi, I know you've got some practical tips.
I do.
Let's get into
so,
it.
Let me
moving right along. Yeah, sure.
Allison's got something.
Oh yeah. Oh, tell me what the 1.2 million is. How much was I worth?
1.5 million in the 90s is double that now. So $3 million in today's money. And then $100 in the S&P 500. So the S&P 500 is like a group of stocks that you can buy. And basically, if you buy one of these stocks, you're invested in 500 different companies. And you can't really do that through a 401k. You have to do it through a brokerage account. So again, these are just kind of financial literacy things that I want to introduce the concepts of to our tech moms. And hopefully we'll be doing like a webinar about financial literacy later on in the fall. But $100 in the S&P 500, any ideas of how much that is worth in today's money? $100 in today's money.
$100. I'm going to guess 50,000.
Well, no. According to Google,
1,400.
2,500.
2,500. Amazing. Amazing.
100. Okay. All right. That was too much. Yeah, you're right. That's $100. I'm thinking bigger numbers, but see that, and that money sat and worked for you. Please
Right.
let your money work for you. Learn to make, my parents did not
Set it and
know
forget it.
anything. Yeah. And there's some passive investing you can do, and there's some active investing you can do. And you can get competent in this. It is not that hard. Allison knows this. 80% of fund managers do not outperform the S&P. You do not necessarily need a guru or someone to run your money for you. You want to get some advice. You don't want to do it all alone, but you don't have to turn it over to some of these big companies. That's also not necessarily about best. You're making these wealth advisors wealthy. There's a reason hedge fund managers are wealthy. They always get paid regardless of their anyway. So yeah, wow. So I was super cool back in the day. I now have the feeling of when I went to New York and went to where Studio 54 was 40 years late. It was so cool in the day, but I was 40 years late. Anyway, I was a little late into the tech game. The people that got in the early 90s, ridiculous. There's still that up in Redmond, Washington, there's still a lot of multimillionaires, secretaries who became multimillionaires because they got in early. So yeah, I mean, that's worth it. We should do a session. Somebody should do a session on how to evaluate a startup.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thought. Yeah. See, how do you look at that? That's a skill. Anyway, so advice from a human being and a triple dipper. I am a Gen X biracial female, which DEI is dead as of Monday. So, we'll see how that works out. I'm not going to get political, but it is a change, and we'll see how that works out for the next 4 years. I see myself first as a human being. We're all humans. We all want the same things. I try not to wear those things as an identity too much, because it's just, it's like I'm driving a red car that has heated seats. Those are the features. We all have a car. Okay, most of us have a car. Anyway, here's what I've learned. Your most valuable assets, 3 things: time, energy, focus. You cannot get more time. Money is not the most valuable thing. Your time is. We all have exactly the same amount, and when it's gone, it's gone. You cannot buy more. Energy, same, and focus, same things. This is where what you're if you are scattered and all over the place and chasing this, that, and the other, and you don't know who you are and you don't know your value, you are not able to direct your efforts and achieve success. When you focus, someone told me, stands for follow one course until successful. And, I admitted, look at me. I am a magpie. I like shiny objects, physical and
pink too.
Yeah. And new ideas. Ooh, that's so cool. And my business partners trained me. It's like, your ideas aren't bad. Put them in the parking lot, write them down. One thing at a time, very few people are able to do what Richard Branson did, which is, develop all these disparate businesses. Focus and energy. You only have so much of this stuff. So don't waste your time on 3 things. When the first one's going to surprise you. Don't waste your time chasing your purpose. You want to know your purpose? Let me give you 2 words. Being you. There you go. Done. Don't worry about it. Your purpose, your mission, and what you're here to do and what your contribution is will shift over time, and you'll know what it is. It's a flowing river. That's like saying, I need to know, where am I in the river? Well, that's going to change. Getting hung up on finding your purpose, it just slows you down. Don't do that. Next thing, don't chase money. Don't just chase money. It takes you, the best investors aren't chasing the money. They are investing what they know. They are investing in what they care about. They are doing things from a centered place. And I love Albert Camus, the French writer, talks about, my dear, I have found my invincible summer. And that's that centered place. And that's where you want to come from. Chasing money, money becomes the God. Money becomes, it's not, it's a resource. It's not, it's a means to an end. It is not the end. A pile of cash. And also, P.S., a lot of very wealthy people aren't that liquid. That's why I don't, they're not sitting there with piles of cash back there. So, and then 3, people who treat you poorly. When people show you who they are, believe them. Don't, and we as women, we want to, oh, we can make it better. Oh, we can work, we're going to be this, we're going to prove ourselves. No, 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 no. If there's one thing I know as you know, as an older Gen X, it's don't go there with men, with bad bosses, with anyone. If they're not treating you well, get away from them. Right. 12. Oh, 3 things to think about. 2 important things: turn obstacles into growth, for opportunity for growth. Obstacles, like, what am I going to do now? Grow into it. It's asking you, if you have any aspirations. Here's the thing about billionaires. You know why they're billionaires? They learn to solve big stuff and handle big stuff. I have a friend who's a multimillionaire and has a business, and I called her up and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Oh, fine. Then I got a letter from the state revenue board. They say I owe them $1 million. I'm like, what? Are you okay? Like, yeah, I'm fine. The lawyer will deal. I don't. The lawyer will deal with it. The people who are multimillionaires and billionaires have simply expanded their capacity to deal with stuff. Mm-hmm. And so this is not a bad thing. This is an opportunity for growth. And I recommend Tina Turner's book, Love Becomes You. If you're dealing with obstacles and trauma and all that stuff, as we, you may not know who Tina Turner is. She passed away in 2023, but her husband beat the crap out of her while they were, really popular singers.
And stole all her money. Beat the
And
crap out of all,
stole
and
money.
stole all her money.
And stole
she
all her
still
money.
moved forward.
And
Yeah.
she still moved forward. And may I point out that she came up, so she left him. All she got was her stage name, because he had given her the stage name. Her real name is Anna Mae Bullock. And she was very they were very popular as the Ike and Tina Turner Review. And she decided not to fight with him anymore, because that's what that song, I Don't Want to Fight No More, is about. She said, forget it all. I just want my stage name. And she took it. Now, this is in the 80s. Who musically was popular? White, male, young, 20s hair bands. 40-year-old Black woman. She got the right people to help her. She kept on trucking, and she hit the charts and never stopped. And then married a wonderful man and had a wonderful rest of her life. But boy, it was a journey. And I read that book when I need she's, God rest her soul. I hope I can meet her in heaven. She's awesome. Saint Tina. I read that book a lot. So if you need some inspiration on how to do that, I mean, she literally ran one day across the freeway and begged for a room. Said, I'm Tina Turner, Black and blue. I don't have any money, but if you give me room, I'll pay you back. And she did. And that's how she did it. So if you're dealing with stuff, you're not the only one. There's a way out. So turn your trauma into strength and wisdom. That's what I've learned from Tina's story and other stories. And finally, one big thing: nothing is impossible. I have done so many impossible things. What is this from Alice in Wonderland? I've thought up 6 impossible things before breakfast. There's something like that. It's wonderful. So those are 3 really big things, guiding principles. 12 qualities to cultivate: curiosity, observation. And I want to encourage you, observation includes watching and listening for what is and is not being said and done. The absence of stuff will tell you, and this is what I learned as a journalist, what's not being said is often more telling than what is. So, little tip: open-mindedness, decisiveness, integrity, courage, confidence, compassion, vision, trust, patience, critical thinking. And there, I could give you a list of 100. Anyway, those are some that I've found. Some of these are in my like curiosities in my DNA. Some stuff you have in your DNA, some stuff you have to cultivate. Finally, I want to say, but I mentored for the Silicon Slopes Women in Leadership program. And I was very touched when my mentee, Oksana, without prompting, wrote this wonderful post about working with me on LinkedIn. And I'm going to read this to you. And the first part of it is for context. I'm not trying to tell you how great I am. That's not the point. But she says, I owe so much of this clarity to Steffi, my mentor, whose unwavering support has been invaluable. Over these past 3 months, we met regularly, and she not only helped me navigate my uncertainties, but she also believed in me. Now, here's the, I had to say that so this will make sense. This is what I want you all to hear and take. If you take nothing else away other than my 3 things, take this. That belief reignited a spark within me, the conviction that everything is possible and achievable, and that I truly deserve to pursue my dreams, no matter how distant they may seem. And that's what I want for all of you. So there it is. Again, know yourself equals know your value, know the game, know the right people.
I love it. I love it. Allison, do you have any questions before I kind of finish things up here?
Yeah. So Steffi, just to give also some context, Robin is the job champion of Tech Moms. She is all about seeing women get in their jobs, getting their foot in the door in tech. And I like to think that I am, well, I'm just announcing this for the first time. I want to be that for women investing for the first time, right? So we have women getting in their jobs and they're making money and they're growing in their careers. But then the complement to that, and that's part of why I wanted to bring you on, Steffi, is knowing that once you have some money, what do you do with that money? Do you put it all in an account? Or how do you go from being an employee to being an investor? Can you just share with us what that looks like?
Yep. And the first thing I'll say is I am an investor is a very important identity to cultivate. I talk about, in fact, I think in talking with Allison, I came up with the term mind identity. I remember that. Yeah, that was our conversation. Mind identity and mindset put together. Another different belief I have, people are all talking about mindset, blah, blah, blah. That is the mouth of the river. Identity, who you believe you are, all of that mindset stuff flows from that. If your identity is skewed, well, I'm not a wealthy person. I'm not a this. I am. Your mindset stuff isn't going to stick. You are going to be down there trying to clean the mouth of the river when you should be at the headwaters cleaning it up there, and that's your identity. Very important identity to claim right away. I am an investor. So start small, start wherever you can. There are, I'm not endorsing anything here. I'm just giving some ideas. So for example, there's Acorns, where they take a few dollars, they round up from your purchases, and then they take a few dollars from your account, and it, like an acorn, it grows into an oak tree. That is something almost, unless you are really, really living on literally the edge, almost anyone could do that. So there's that company and others. Start, do it. Sign up for something now. Mutual funds. People ask, well, should I start there? They're not the best, because the thing is, when the fund manager's trading in there, that creates a tax event. So you could theoretically get a tax bill at the end of the year. They're like, wait, what? And some companies have been sued for the tax bill that they've gotten from their mutual fund. So be aware that this is taxable stuff. That is a place to start. If you don't know what to do, find a mutual fund or find an ETF, exchange traded fund.
And when you say find one, where do you find one?
Okay. So there are platforms for all this stuff. If you start Googling, you can, like, I had TD Ameritrade. It's now been bought by Schwab. You get yourself one of those accounts. It does not cost anything to open it. And then you set up, however much to transfer a month. And then you have options of what you can choose to invest in. The ETFs, it's an index fund. This is the same thing. So where it's like Allison was saying, it's a basket of stocks. So you're diversifying, you're spreading your risk. And that's what you want to do when you get started. Now that at the bigger time level, you can concentrate. And that's where big money, but you need to know what the heck you're doing and be willing to take the risk. And it
Before
works.
picking individual
Yeah,
stocks,
before picking
picking a
individual
group of them.
stocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can start there when you want to start picking individual stocks. I have two. I'm not going to say them here because I don't want to be commercial. But I have a friend in Boston who's quite wealthy, who's done her own individuals, and she has a program you can get online. I know her well, and I know it's real because there's a ton of gurus. Be careful buying all the guru programs, okay? And then I have two friends in London who are guys who went through trying to figure it out, and they have a whole thing. In fact, they have a fund in Luxembourg that if you don't want to do their thing, you can just put the money in. Be careful what you do. But yeah, individual stocks, if that overwhelms you, start with the funds. That's
Like
always
an
a good
S&P
place to start.
500 is
Yeah.
that basket. So you can buy
Yep.
one stock of the S&P 500,
Yep.
then call yourself an investor within a
Yep.
brokerage account. And
Yep.
you're an investor.
Exactly.
We can watch the stock go up and down, and don't get too tied to it. But if you buy one stock, then you're an investor. If you have a 401k,
Yeah.
you're an investor. But it's limited because your
Yeah.
company picks the pool of investments there. So that's why you want it in a brokerage fund.
Right,
Right?
exactly. Yeah, and then you can look at whether you want it, and this is a whole other discussion to have, is do you put it in a regular taxable account or do you put it in a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA? That's a whole
Right.
other, we can talk that stuff later, but you want to think about those things because the conventional wisdom, I don't advocate the conventional wisdom. I have really different ideas, and I know what the wealthy people did to get that way. A lot of the conventional wisdom is designed to keep you very middle class. Y'all can do better. For sure.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Alison, I'm excited for you to start hosting a Tech Moms Investment Club. We'll get these conversations going. I also love money. I love investing. I love these different things. So I love these conversations and I love your challenge to say start somewhere, right? I've got two kids. I've got a 20-year-old that has an Acorn account and she, is doing small investing very early. That's much earlier than I started investing. So
Oh,
there
yeah,
are
please
ways to
start
start
with.
really small and
Mhm,
and once you get started, you get a sense of it and you recognize the
mhm.
potential for a lot more. So I love
Yeah,
the one end of it that we need to start and earn more money and then we need to have ways to make our money make more money for us. So these are
right.
great conversations. Steffi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for
Um,
having
I
me.
just
This
want
was
to make
awesome.
a note that you've got all your notes here and you've got in a document that we can share out for people
Mhm,
who want to follow along with some of these things. But so many great inspirational ideas and then some tactical,
mhm.
practical ideas for steps that we can take. So great conversation today. And Allison, thank you so much for joining us as well and for making this
Having
introduction.
me.
And
Yeah.
we're excited for more opportunities for all of us at Tech Moms to move ahead in some of these great areas. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch